I'm just counting time and I'm watching everything in terms of the timelines that are manifesting, and we really are at critical mass here.
I agree with you in the sense that it's going to intensify. It's obviously intensifying. It's escalating.
Yeah.
What do you see here, Bo? Go ahead. You can have the floor.
Yeah, so I want to start with this. I'm going to say this twice. Okay, events that are going on in our world. I know as crazy as they might be, or as intense as they might be. I want to say this. Okay, all of this going on in our world, it's not unexpected, because God wrote the end from the beginning. When you understand Revelation, you understand timelines within the Bible, and you understand the prophecy of Daniel. So these things, they are not political; they're biblical. I'm going to repeat that. The events of our world, they're not political, they're biblical. And so all these events that are manifesting on the world are all perfectly fitting into God's design. We're going to see a huge event go down, and so we're looking at time points that are important. So September 25th was a very, very important time point. Why? Because it was the day of judgment. On that day, of all days that this could have happened, on that exact day, you've got 45 with a gun mocking these people. And what was the whole thing of Arnold, right? I'll be back. So all of these,
man, you really put this together.
Please go back to the prior two podcasts, okay? I've said very clearly it won't be until the winter solstice, to the 6-month turn, from the summer solstice to the winter solstice, where all hell breaks loose, and by the winter solstice, we will be 180 degrees different than where we were by the summer solstice. So something happened in between. All of this is by God's design. Nothing in timing right now is random. We are leaping into the most incredible time point in human history, David. We get to be here on this earth, watch the greatest move of God's Spirit ever. This is going to be better than what happened at the Red Sea when God parted it. This is going to be historic, what's about to happen here. See, this has always been about Israel, okay? The whole world, for 2,000 years, this has always been around about Israel. The world wants Israel. Right now, we've got conflict that's been going on for over 100 years with the Arab states. So 1913, you got the first conflict that happened. If you understand time, this is basically a move towards the year 2037, okay? Everything is lining up for a move into the year 2037. Israel conflict from 1913, it goes on. After that, there is another war where Israel was proclaimed its independence, and this was in 1948, and that was May 14th. Interesting, David, but on that exact day, Trump was 700 days old. To the exact day, Israel proclaimed its independence, and within 24 hours, you got a war break out. 19 years later, you got another war, the War of 1967, and that began on June 5. Now, this is important. The war was how many days? It was called a what? The 6-day war.
6-day war, yeah.
Yes. So the war was 6 days, and on the 7th day, it was over. It ended on the 6th day.
Interesting.
Now, this is the 6th day is the date of completion. And on the 7th, there is the day of rest. Furthermore, if you go from 1967, which is right here, you run a calendar cycle. We've read Leviticus. Thou shalt consecrate the 50th year. The 50th year was what? 2017. The Revelation 12 sign happened exactly on September 23rd, which was Rosh Hashanah, September 23rd of 2017. So that's exactly 50 years from the 6-day war of 1967. How does that happen? Because it's by design. Let's take it further. Also, when you read Exodus, it talks about years, because there's a thing called a Shemitah. 7th year is the year of Shemitah, which is the time of rest, but the 6th year is a time of completion. Well, let's do some more math. We're looking for two things. The whole point of this presentation, we're looking for two things: to find out the year of the Lord's favor and the day of his vengeance. So we're to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God. So when is the year of the Lord's favor? Well, 1967, 50 years takes us to 2017. You have to add now what? 6 years. Let's add 6 years. If you add 6 years to 2017,
that's this year or so.
2023. The issue is there's only October,
November and
December left. Okay. So the Bible is telling us from the Revelation 12 sign, this is the year of the Lord's favor. In other words, God needs to finish his work. Basically, the scriptures are telling us God's going to finish his work by the end of 2023. We talked about the feast. The spring feasts have passed. The calculations are telling us it's year 2023. There's 3 fall feasts. We're in the last one. Trumpets is gone. Atonements is finished. That was on the 25th. And all that's left is tabernacles. And you and I are speaking right now on the 3rd of October in the time point of tabernacles, which ends this Friday, October 6th. So if God historically has done things and he's moved, because these are his appointed times, his appointed feasts and seasons. So when God moves, he'll historically is moved within his feasts. That takes us to tabernacles. How awesome is this? On the 29th, Feinstein died. This is an angel of death prophecy. The angel of death struck. And this was the first. But when the angel of death struck Pharaoh, there was hundreds, maybe thousands of deaths in a single night. I've stated on your show, we are going to see either this year or early or some point early next year, but it's coming, an angel of death timed, and the morgues will be filled. What also happened on day 1, September 29th? The New York flooding. People, Google New York flood. That was the most insane flood that New York's ever seen. It was titled Biblical Flooding. It happened on the 29th and it continued into the 30th. This happened on Tabernacles. God is moving. Tabernacles ends this Friday. Something, I believe, is coming very, very soon. It's
this week.
This broadcast. Yeah, potentially into this Friday, not into on this Friday, potentially, or into the Friday, into the Saturday, because it's basically Israel time versus United States time. So we run a 50-year cycle. Now, this is crazy. 50-year cycle. Think about this. 50 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, but more importantly, relative to war and conflict, the Yom Kippur War. David, let me read this to you. The Yom Kippur War, also called the October War, was initiated by Egypt and Saudi Arabia on what day? October 6th, 1973, on the Jewish holiday of Yom Kippur. Let's do a 50-year Leviticus cycle. Oh! Coincidentally, this Friday, the last day of Tabernacles, October 6th.
This was not what you thought you would wake up to on a Saturday morning. Talk to us about the larger historical context. We heard there from Rath is the 50th anniversary of that other awful surprise attack back in 1973.
A war which eventually drew both the United States and the Soviet Union. Sound familiar? Two nations right now?
Wow.
The war finally ceased on October 26th. So you want some bullet points? October 6th, October 26th, Israel signed a formal ceasefire agreement with Egypt on November 11th, 11/11, and with Syria, which would be on May 31 of 1974, which would be next year, which would be completion. And the war had a significant impact on the trajectory of an eventual peace process between Egypt and Israel. David, Saudis are now talking peace talks with Israel.
Insanity.
This is biblical. This is so huge. You don't understand, those that don't understand the magnitude, because Israel hasn't had peace with all the Arab nations in over 100 years. You do not want to miss this entire interview. Click the link below and enjoy the show.